All right, we'll go ahead and just get started here. I'm really happy to introduce you to Ashley Cooks. Ashley has spoken at TLDC in the past. She was in our Women of L&D event that took place in March. And in fact, I will type in a link if you want to watch that one later. And she reminded me that when she produced this particular session for us, which was wonderful, I asked her to keep an eye out for our summer event, the AIDC for this summer, and so she's back. Let me tell you a little bit about Ashley. Ashley Cooks is an award-winning instructional designer and CEO of Empower Her Strategies LLC, specializing in inclusive, accessible, and equity-centered learning. With over a decade of experience, she helps organizations create culturally responsive training using UDL, WCAG, and culturally intelligent frameworks to make learning more human-centered and impactful. I will paste in her LinkedIn as well. So if you'd like to connect with her, and with that, Ashley, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera and audio and let you take over.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Like you said, this is a really big topic that's super, super important to me. I've been in this field for some time, and in there, I learned so much. And while he was talking last conference, I also talked about, a little bit about my experience. And so he didn't even know, like, Lewis didn't even know he challenged me to kind of grow a little more and kind of talk about that a little more. And so I created this presentation with that a little bit in mind. And so in this time, I'm going to kind of talk about inclusive learning designs, and then how to create those experiences for learners in the workforce. So I'll talk a little bit about my journey. So I grew up in Houston, Texas. And actually, at that time, it was a very good school system. But I grew up with dyslexia. And so learning was not the easiest for me. I went to numerous tutors, went to many diagnostic people just to kind of figure out what was going on. At the time that my mom noticed, said, hey, something's kind of off with her learning. I'd already started overcompensating. So it was really, really hard to kind of sense what was going on. And so I was kind of overlooked. They kind of tried to help me, but they couldn't really figure out what could help. And I remember clear as day, my mom was really getting, just really frustrated because school was not an easy thing, but it was an expectation of me passing and doing well in school. And so my mom was like, hey, I just need you to learn how you learn. And that phrase that night just stuck with me all the way through from elementary on to college, on to now as a professional in the workforce. And back then, I didn't really see myself when I was looking for people after being diagnosed, like who can I follow? Who can I look up to? I really didn't see anyone that was either very open about having dyslexia, or just any CEOs. My mom and I scavenged on the internet and we found some actors and some actresses, but I really didn't find anyone that looked like me and that was more locally accessible, similar to me in the workforce, like to look up to. So that's kind of been my mission of now I want to kind of just really sound the alarm on inclusive learning, but also for younger generation and for people that are currently in the workforce, like do not be afraid to let people know and just kind of also create that culture of us building material and creating material for everyone, so where we don't have those gaps anymore. And I don't mind being open about my diagnosis, because a lot of people always say, I always get, you don't look like you have dyslexia, which it doesn't have a look, but I understand the way I carry myself and the way I speak doesn't look as if I also have that diagnosis now. So that's kind of a little bit about me and kind of what fueled this energy. And so when it comes to inclusive learning, it matters really deeply. So when you create inclusive learning, and I've seen it in the workforce, in manufacturing and in oil and gas, it creates higher engagement. because learners can see themselves. Also, it's easy for them to understand if you're thinking about, using maybe more simplistic language, and kind of breaking those things down a little bit. You get higher engagement with inclusive learning design. And then you get higher knowledge transfers. So whenever we're creating e-learning modules or course material, because the training is meant for people and thinking about inclusion and things like that, we have a higher knowledge transfer. So increased retention overall of what material we're creating. And like I've talked about pretty much in Europe and in the US, when I present there, we're starting to see a larger force of generations in the workforce actively still. So currently right now, as today, the present workforce has at least five generations actively still working. And that could be on the end of super, super high demand or someone as a secretary. So it's really important to create material. And I always really challenge people to create design so that no one feels left out. So everyone can think, I can do this job. And that's kind of my motivation also, that they can do this job, but then also that they can move up in the workplace is something that I like to create material and think about. So understanding learners' diversity, I'm not exception, I'm the example. So I kind of took that approach whenever I was creating material, especially while I was in college and at an internship. Dyslexia is just one part of the broader spectrum of learning differences. There's so many more things, but it can be someone physical with sensory accessibility, cultural backgrounds, language proficiency. I've worked with that a lot in manufacturing background, generational perspectives and technological comfort, especially with AI on a rise. I think it's really important it can be exciting to include AI, include high tech advantage things into your learning, but it's important to remember that we're having several generations in there. So maybe you just add a little page in there showing how to navigate the e-learning module, or how to navigate whatever program you're doing. Just it's important not to forget those small steps, how to log in, right? That could be something simple for a certain demographic, but it might not be as simple as someone who maybe only has used their phone, never really logged in on a computer. Those are things we have to think about when we're creating material for our workforce. Um, and storytelling is a wonderful tool. I use it a lot, and it helps create also emotional connections. So when I was creating material, maybe, let's say for a manufacturing, or currently I work for equipment services, and when I'm creating material, I create those scenarios that will, kind of help pull in the emotions, right? Because especially if you wanting change behavior, when you're creating that material, it's really important to add the storytelling element in there. Create that narrative, why, right? Also using the demographic you see in there. So if you have mainly a Hispanic population or a mainly Vietnamese population, using those people and those names in your stories are so critical, because now it's showing, okay, this company not only sees me, but they also see us as a community. I work with someone that has that similar name, or, oh, wow, she describes something that's common in our culture, right? Or around holidays that are important to our company. It's really important to embed those things when you're doing material. And a big part of that is the storytelling element of it. Leveraging technology gaps. And so for me, this was a really big movement for me, not only in the workforce as I was coming up in the workforce, but also while I was in school. And it's partially why I always include it in all the training that I create. So leveraging technology for gaps, and bridging those gaps, creating audio and text to speech, right? First of all, when I created text to speech as a dyslexic person, I can text it and hear it and say, okay, this doesn't sound right, right? Because if anyone knows a little bit about dyslexia, I might miss some letters, right? And so if I type it out and it doesn't sound right, then I know something is wrong, right? And it triggers me to go back when I'm creating the material. But then also, when I create it and I have maybe like closed caption, I'm able to also help someone that maybe is having language to read, like language translation issues. Maybe they don't really know English well, but now they're able to read it, right? And that might be easier, or they're able to change it into their native language. AI does some really, really amazing things. And I've used that in virtual reality too, to kind of help not only put us in that and build that confidence while we're creating training and while we're training people in the workforce. It also just helps all around encompass, makes things easier to digest. And even when I'm using, let's say, e-learning, I was working for a company and they didn't know. We found out later, and I talk about it in my previous session that I did with you all here, but they didn't really understand how to navigate the slides. They didn't really understand, and that was a part of why we were having people fail our material. And so what we did was we just added audio with using text to speech on how to navigate that slide. That made it so easy. It made a major a difference, and it helped them feel comfortable. They, they gained traction when they were using the e-learning modules. And so I think things like that commonly get left out, and it's something that maybe someone doesn't want to speak on because they feel like I should know this because obviously the workforce is giving this to me. But it's something that we can highlight and take a step back and realize. Also, it creates kind of like the adaptive interfaces, a personalized learning paths. It's easy to process information, comprehension levels. All of this kind of technology helps bridge that when it comes to the workforce. And so I put a little thing at the bottom that says Tech Save Me. It's now a tool I use to unlock learning for others because it truly did change it for me. And I honestly wish we had that a little bit more when I was coming up in school. Because I mean, text to speech did wonders in how I talk versus and how I write material. If it doesn't sound right, I know something's wrong, right? And it triggers me. So it kind of helps create those little errors that would normally happen before we were really pushed into like text to speech and AI driven creating content. And so designing for accessibility, this is one of my biggest pet peeves is complex fonts. And so on here, I put simplistic fonts and proper spacing because that makes just a clean page with that makes so much difference for someone like me, also that's dyslexic. But then also, if we create simplistic fonts, simplistic words, it also just makes it easy for anyone. Another one that I'll highlight on here is the captions and transcripts for videos. This does really, really well, especially if you can translate, have your captions in different languages. This helps all learners feel comfortable. I use that pretty much at every company I've had, whether even if the only language was just English, I still used it because it allowed people to see but then also here, I'm a person that watches movies with captions on. It drives my mother crazy, but I have to have it because it helps me. I might miss things when I'm listening. That's part of one of the forms of dyslexia I have. I might not hear right. And so I'm able to hear and read at the same time. I'm golden. I got everything and it helps. Auto narration options for all text context is good for people that are visually impaired. And that is something that also I feel like we've kind of shied away from in some of the large corporations, but I think we have to really hone it in. And when, especially when I'm working with clients, I'm working at my current company, I try to remember that those are little things, but those are little wins that we have for people to feel comfortable with our company. And then cultural intelligence and representation. I can't speak of this more, especially kind of like in the climate that we're in right now. Inclusive visuals are super important. I kind of talked about this a little bit. Um, I would definitely advise people when you're creating material, especially for a company, or even for yourself or your own personal company, find people that look differently. Like, find different cultures. Find people that don't look like you, right? And so you can show that makes a world of difference. For someone like me, if I'm looking at my company, I'm like, well, I don't really see myself in anyone here, right? I don't really see someone that's a Black woman working in this workforce. I might not be the person that can move up. It's small things like that that make a huge impact later. Plain language, keep it clear, keep it concise. I always tell people, I'm like, send it over to me. Send it over to me, and I'll just wordsmith it and create a simple paragraph or simple sentence to kind of help. And then continuous improvement, redesign leadership modules. I always do that with feedback, and I include other cultures. So I put Western centric because for the time when I was thinking about creating this training, I was working for a company that wasn't the norm, and I was like, oh, we need to really open it up so that people that are in the workforce, that are in the main population that we want to progress and move up, see themselves. And so I redesigned some materials, right? Added some names in there, added some more photos. And so I kind of helped revamp that from the aesthetic point of view, and kind of made it more inclusive so that people can feel like, oh, I can be that person because this name is similar, or I've heard this name in my culture. And I can do this. It's those things that we might take for granted as small little like things we toss away, but really they make a really a big impact overall. Um, I've noticed that. And so inclusive across all generations, I always get people always laugh when I bring this slide up, but it's truly important that the key is not to stereotype people saying, oh, this person is a baby boomer. They won't ever know. I promise you, there's when you're creating material and creating training, when I do kind of like a learning path, I do it with everyone in mind. So I'm gonna take a little bit from here, from there. We're gonna add some hands-on material, some hands-on paper for the training. But we're also gonna have some e-learning. We're gonna have a QR code option to scan. We're gonna have some AI in there. We're gonna have some virtual reality in there. Those things, I try to mix it up, even though we have five generations, it challenges some generations, but then also it makes others feel comfortable, right? And then it makes them feel like, hey, I can do this. I know I'm up to speed, while keeping our content in general also up to speed. So I think it's really important to really consider that since we have all these kind of generations in there working, we need to make sure that we're thinking about everything and thinking about how to go about conducting that training, especially when we're creating learning paths on certain topics. So I talked pretty fast, but these are kind of action steps for us today. As someone watching this training, and as someone, as me, as I do this literally every day. And I try to do this when I'm redoing training, to audit my content. Especially, I think you should do it at least once a year. Once a year, when we have your slow season, go back and say, let me see what we can do, right? Let me think about what I've learned in this session and what I kind of know from the business in that year, and go back and audit your content, review, look at language barriers, look at navigation. Is this actually easily accessible? It's nothing wrong, and I think that a lot of people don't do this stuff, and it's really important. And I always challenge people everywhere I work is like, hey, let's go back and redo some of this material. It's okay. 9 times out of 10, we went and just produced it quick so that we can get it out there. Let's go back and make it good, you know? And apply some of the principles I talked about, engagement, representation in there. Um, Replace some terms, some vocabulary, kind of add those diverse experiences in there. And then this step is also what people don't like to do, but get feedback. Just take the material, and I always tell people this, take the material and don't take it as, oh, I created this. Look at it for the person that's getting hired right now. This is for them. Take yourself away from what you've created and have people give you feedback, and go to someone. If you need a sandwich method where you need some light comments, you need some harsh comments, find those people and create your own sandwich method. but it's super important to gather feedback. I love to gather feedback from the people that I'm making the content for. I do always do a test group, of course, for some from leadership, but then also someone from a whole different department that I'm creating material for. Because if they can understand what I created and they don't even do this as their everyday work, I'll go to customer service. They don't understand what we do with equipment. But if they can understand it, then I know I've made it simple and easy and concise for whoever I'm making this material for. Um, and I left a little quote: design like the future of someone's career depends on it, because it does. It's really important. The material that we create, the material that we make, it is super important for us to kind of create that material with that person in mind, because what you create could be as simple and it can help someone promote up to the next position. It can be as simple as I feel connected to the campus now. So it really does make a difference when you look at it on the broader scheme. It can be really hard when you're tunneling in, when you're creating that material. But if you look at it from a more broader sense, you have the opportunity to kind of encompass everything and kind of help people that are coming into the company, or that are currently already in the company. And so I have some goodies on my website. I've created the time because I needed the material. So I created it to share for everyone. And so I have the inclusive content audit checklist. So I have a checklist of saying this is what we need from material, kind of like what to do if you're doing your mid-year review, check in on content, or your mid-year or your end of year, just kind of checking on your content, whichever one your company does. I have that checklist and it kind of helps encompass that for everyone. Also have an inclusive learning toolkit. In there, I kind of just talk about just um, what to do in kind of like a deeper than this presentation, why this is important, and how to like go to resources, how to truly create from the very beginning this inclusive learning toolkit. And then also I presented at Canada and they kind of challenged me a little bit on creating just kind of the bridging the gap for rural workforces. And so I said, even though this training is not about this, I think it could be useful for people that may need it. So it's about kind of like connecting rural communities um, into kind of like regular workforces. So if you're a farmer, how to make that training that you've done, out there farming accessible and fit for the workforce. So this is what this kind of talks about, really diving into your experience in life matters and it doesn't need to be discredited when you're trying to transition kind of into the workforce. And then everyone learns here is a toolkit, my ebook, kind of just explaining about a little bit deeper in my story, but also kind of some templates, some understanding, some know-how on how to facilitate this conversation also in your workforce. So it kind of encompasses everything that I talked about today in detail. And this is just my information slide. I will leave you with one last quote. So your small changes can make enormous difference in someone's learning journey. Remember, accessibility is not just about compliance, it's about creating opportunities for everyone to succeed. And I truly take that with me and to the heart whenever I'm making material and creating training. And so I also have my email address here, my LinkedIn. I know he put it down in the chat. I also have my Instagram for both my business and my personal. I love to chat with people and just kind of like get quick and accessible content. I'm also starting to create more content because noticed that it's not really there on social media wise, and people, my family and friends always tease me like, I don't know what you do. And so I'm just taking that journey to kind of document this process. And so it's on social media also. And then I have my website there, just in case you need any resources that I mentioned in here or just want to kind of mosey around there. That information is there for you. Thank you all for having me today. And I'll be looking forward to questions in the chat.
All right, thank you, Ashley. Let's see here. Let me take a look to see if there are any questions. Oh yeah, Bridget had mentioned that that's a good point. Rural and agricultural workplaces are culturally different
Yes.
from urban slash knowledge worker environments. Very, very good point. Getting lots of thanks in here. All right, excellent. All right, and can you go back to like the resources that you have again? I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I should have looked at that a little closer.
here you
Those,
go.
so how do we access those?
On my website,
Oh,
everything
okay.
is there. Yeah, everything is digital. Everything is there. If you don't see it on there for some odd reason, you can always email me. But
Let me let's see. What was the website again? Let me type it into chat.
empower her strategies LLC.com.
Empower Her Strategies
One, yeah, LLC.
LLC.com. Okay, Empower Her Strategies. Okay, I think I have that in there. Let me click on it just to double check and make sure. Ah, there we are. Okay, excellent. All right, let me take a look in QA, not seeing anything. I think that's it. All right. Well, Ashley, thank you for taking the time
Thank
out today
you.
to share with us. Really appreciate you being here. And let's see. Next up, we have Judy Katz, who I have known for years and years and years. She has been around L&D like forever, and she actually has two sessions at this event. She has one today and then one on Thursday. But at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern, Judy's going to be here talking about beyond accessibility, beyond universal design, reaping all the benefits of accessible practices. Judy is absolutely amazing and an incredible instructional designer. So please come back for that one. Ashley, thanks again. And oh, wait, let's see. I do see something that popped up. Oh, here we go from Bridget K. Brown. What about font size? One of your slides had what was, for me, small font, and I'm sitting in front of the screen.
That is a good point. So I try to make sure that it's large, and I usually go back and make sure. I must have been moving fast with this presentation, but I normally go back and review things and try to make sure that it's larger. Also, I also do because I use Articulate 360 to create a lot of training. You can do like an auto zoom like portion of it. So if they click on it, kind of for accessibility, they're able to zoom and like move around your presentation. So.
I know for me, like in Gmail, I've adjusted my default font so that it's the
Yeah,
large one.
me
I
too.
I I, I feel like
I'm wearing contacts. Okay,
right.
so I also need to zoom things out, especially when I don't have them on or no glasses.
Yeah, like Kim is saying, the font at the bottom of the slide on screen now is a bit small to me. Kim, and then she in parentheses boomer. I get it, Kim. I'm a Gen Xer, so for me, I'm like, I need
I have no
everything.
idea what my excuse then, because I am Gen Z.
There you go. All right, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and close out the session. We'll see you at the next one. Thanks again, Ashley. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.